G'day there guys, Why'd the Chicken Cross the Road here, back at it again with another episode of Because It Damn Well Could, and today we're going to question whether it's the a-hole or not on today's episode. Now sit back, relax and enjoy the content, I hope you love it. Posted by user Irrational Offer, titled, Am I the a-hole for taking back the beer I bought for a party which I was uninvited? This happened just a few hours ago. I'm a 19-year-old man, and the people calling me an a-hole are 18-year-old men and women. On Thursday, a person I had a major crush on in high school, but who rejected me, messaged me out of the blue. She had never contacted me without my contacting her first, and at one point I realized she had blocked me on social media, and so I found it odd that she was suddenly being friendly. After sending a couple of greetings and questions about how I've been, she said that she was going to have some people over and wanted to know if I would get the beer. The drinking age where we are is 19, and she and the people who were going to chill were all 18. The liquor stores in my area all card. I thought it was silly that my being a month older meant I could buy liquor and they couldn't, and so I said I would love to go. She said thanks, I'll pick you up at 7. 7 o'clock rolled around, and she texted me to say she was in front of my house. I went out dressed and ready to chill with some people, and she drove me to the liquor store. When we got there, I asked her what beer she wanted me to get, and she told me to get Budweiser. I hid my disappointment as well as I could, but it was her party, so I went in and bought 2 cases of 24. I got back in the car and said, "Let's party," and she was eerily quiet. I noticed that she wasn't driving towards her neighborhood, but rather back towards mine. I thought she had moved or something, but didn't want to press the issue. When she turned down my street, I finally figured it out. She was being purposefully vague about the invitation because she wanted me to get the beer, but she wanted a way out when she told me I wasn't actually invited in the first place. She stopped in front of my house, leaned over, kissed me on the cheek, and said thanks in her best voice. I deadpanned her and asked when she was going to tell me I wasn't invited. She feigned surprise and said that she never intended to invite me in the first place. I sat in silence for a long, awkward minute, picked up the beer, and walked towards my front door. She got out of her car and frantically tried to re-invite me to the party, but I told her that what she did was the most humiliating thing that ever happened to me. I opened my front door, slammed it a bit hard, and came back to my room. Now I'm sitting here drinking absolutely unpalatable piss water, and I have text messages from all of her friends and her asking me why I'm being such a dick. I don't think I'm an a-hole for reacting the way I did, but if you haven't figured it out, I'm not amazing socially, so I'm not sure. Am I the a-hole here? I'm going to say no, you're very much justified in your actions there, and I think you knew you were being used from the start there, and it's not a good feeling. That's for sure. It's never a good feeling to be used. So I think you did what was right in that situation. You took the beer back. It sounds like you paid for it and not her, which disgusting in itself, isn't it? OP not the a-hole, and those people really need to grow up and stop using people. Not the a-hole. Blatantly. How did she expect this to go? You'd happily go buy her beer, then take it to the party, and then leave without partying or drinking your beer? They all have to be a bit cracked in the head if they believe that was ever going to work. I'd take a Snapchat of me pouring that down a toilet before I ever gave it to them. I'm sorry this happened to you. I hope you can move past what a nasty piece of work this girl, not woman, is. That's an awesome idea. I was planning to just throw them in my fridge and tell my stepdad to go nuts because he'll drink anything. No, he's not an alcoholic, but down the toilet would work well too. Pour one out for a terrible party and then give the rest to your stepdad. You get brownie points for doing something nice for him while she gets to go cry over being terrible. This, but in the photo, hold a few bottles to make it look like you're flushing the whole lot out of spite instead of just one. And have a few half-crushed empty cans in the ground in the shot for good measure. Personally, I wouldn't recommend that. I would just drink it and give it to the stepdad. Don't need to make such a show of it. But to each their own. Not the a-hole. I would have loved to see her face when you took the beer with you. Good for you. That ticked off face after doing something wrong to someone is so good to see. They should be able to buy Budweiser because in my area, it's not considered beer, but camel pee. Oh. Posted by user Disastrous Afternoon 1, titled, Am I the a-hole for not dropping child support even if my husband is able to support my child financially? When I was 20, I dated Ryan, who was 28. I let him know how I felt about abortion. I'm pro-choice, but I don't want one for me, and that I was using birth control regularly. I became pregnant 6 months into our relationship after 4 years of continuous birth control use, with 0 scares. He did not want to use a condom, which I do agree was stupid on my part. Ryan wanted no part, which I understood. All I asked was that he provided child support in whatever way that he could. He disagreed, and eventually I had to go to court. Over 3 years, he would evade support, work under the table, or use his wealthy parents to support him. I did get a steady stream of support after 2 years, but it was just barely enough. I eventually graduated from college while being a mum 24/7 and working. I was mum and dad for 3 years, and did it on my own financially, with the odd CS check here and there. After that, I met my husband Kyle. Kyle had been in our lives since my son Lucas was 3 years old. Lucas called him Dad, and they're very close. I've asked Ryan to let Kyle adopt Lucas, but he refuses. He'll barely even talk to me, and he has me blocked everywhere. I had to ask through my lawyer, and I gave up on it after several no's. We've had to learn to be content with Kyle being Lucas's real father in every way but legally. The problem is that Ryan found out exactly what Kyle does for a living. Kyle is an engineer with a well-known company. He's making enough that I can stay home with the kids and pursue other dreams of mine. For example, I've always wanted to get my master's, and with my husband's job, I can afford to put my efforts into that without worrying about the expense of childcare. Because of this, Ryan pays me child support as if I was unemployed, and he's now at an age where he has to stay at one job for more than a few months. He's paying me much more than if I was working. It makes him extremely angry to know that we're, Lucas and I, living quite comfortably. Before the current situation, we went to court. The judge and our state laws don't take into account what Kyle makes, and determined that Ryan would continue to pay the set amount. He believes that he should pay nothing and Kyle can support us. I agree, but he refuses to let my son be adopted. If Ryan won't let another man be the legal father of my son, then he can't continue to fulfill the obligations of a legal father. My husband agrees and doesn't think I should just drop the child support. Obviously, Ryan wants me to drop it, and his mother has even reached out. He and his parents have never even met Lucas, and are only contacting me to drop child support. Am I the a-hole for not dropping child support? No, absolutely not. He's just seeing that you finally figured a way to support yourself and you finally found stability, and they're like, cool, this is a good reason for us to screw you even harder. What do you mean you don't want to be screwed even harder? Dude, what? The courts aren't allowing me to do this? No! In conclusion, Ryan is a bigger baby than Lucas, and that is a fact, and OP is not the a-hole. Edit. Wow, I didn't expect to read so many comments. I really appreciate the time everyone has taken to respond to me. I would like to answer a few common questions I've seen here. Does Ryan know child support is no longer his responsibility if he allows my son to be adopted? Yes, he's aware of this, or so I think. I sent a letter to his home explaining how the process would work. Essentially, no more child support in exchange for adoption. I would like to think he's not a total idiot and could have easily found out this information himself. Nevertheless, I did inform him in basic English what would happen. Does Ryan's mother know about the adoption, and have I thought of reaching out to her? Again, I would hope she saw the letter I wrote, or is intelligent enough to put 2 and 2 together. Ryan suffers from type 1 diabetes and was spoiled quite a bit. His parents couldn't protect him from child support or taking responsibility. I was the evil person who ruined their kid's life and didn't allow him to pursue going to college or whatever. He was 28 when this all happened. He wasn't going to go to college regardless. But Kathy isn't likely to back me here. I'm sure she also has that weird legacy, explained below, that prevents her from wanting to help. Why won't he allow an adoption? The main reason is that my son is the only boy in his family. His siblings all had girls, and Ryan is unlikely to marry or father another child. It's this weird sexist legacy thing his family has invented in their heads. I couldn't explain it to anyone because I don't even get it myself. My son has never met his paternal family, and he has my maiden name. What do we do with the child support? When I initially began receiving the $100 a month, I was using it all on my son since I was working a crappy job and going to school. Right now, the payments are better. Definitely not some crazy amounts. I promise I'm not trying to rob this man or bleed him dry. It's a very reasonable amount compared to his income. We actually put away a bit more than that in a fund for my daughter every month. So I put the whole child support amount in Lucas's account, and Carl makes up the remaining amount himself so that all our children are on equal footing. We call it a college fund, but we completely intend for this money to go towards anything the children want, whether it be a down payment for a home, college, trade school, etc. Again, thank you for taking the time to respond to me. I feel guilty at times because of my mother. She tells me to look at things from Ryan's perspective and how his diabetes has limited his life. I don't want to make my life harder or more complex. However, I think it's enough of feeling sorry for this man. I'll be pushing harder for this adoption to happen for my son. He's getting to the age where he understands more and is able to express what he wants to a judge. Thank you. Not the a-hole. If he wants to remain the legal father, then he needs to fulfill that responsibility. If he lets your husband adopt the son, then he's done. But for now it seems like he'll be paying for his immaturity. Literally. I hope you can lawyer up and get that money from him. I can see not wanting to give up custody if he has a role in his son's life, but he can't expect to get out of his financial obligations as a father and keep his legal status as father too. He wants all of the reward with no responsibility. Posted by user Thomas___my life. Titled, Am I the a-hole for kicking my brother-in-law and his wife out? I've lost my son 2 months ago. He was only 25, he was disabled, he had cerebral palsy since birth. My husband and I loved him so much and gave him all the love and care he needed to make it through the difficult times. Since his death, I've been getting a lot of quote-unquote advice on how to move on in life and pretend like my son didn't even exist. Just like what they did when my husband passed away 2 years ago. My brother-in-law, my husband's brother, has always been a total a-hole to me. 1 week before my husband died, he told my husband to not worry about me because I will marry again. He told this while he was dying. My husband was a great man. He was a donor. He cared for our son and always wanted for him to be happy. When my son died, right after we got back from the funeral, my brother-in-law and his wife stayed at my house for a whole week. He said, "Why are you still so sad for your son? You should be happy for him. You should be happy for the both of you. Him not having to deal with his disability anymore, and you being free, now you can go live your life without having to take care of a disabled person. It wasn't like he was going to make it to 50, right?" I just felt awful. I got so angry with him. I told him he was an a-hole and told him to get out of my house. He started running his mouth again and said, "I know you're just acting out because you're grieving, but that does not excuse your crappy behavior towards me and my wife." Before he left, I told him to hand me the spare key to my house that he stole from my husband before he died. He lifted it up and then instead of giving it to me, he tossed it in the trash bin. His wife was laughing on her way out, and I just stood there feeling awful. I cried my eyes out that day and wished that my son was there to comfort me. Now he's calling me to say that he wants me to come over and help his wife decorate his son's birthday party. Ow, ow, ow. This is more of a venting story, so you're definitely not the a-hole for kicking your brother-in-law out for that. There's no reality I do think that anyone could interpret it that way. I hope you're doing better, OP. I hope that you find some stability and way to cope with this. He is really not helping things, and you know that, and I think it would probably be good to limit most contact with that man and his wife, or even no contact, as much as people don't like to hear that. But as this seems like a situation where no contact is a very healthy thing to me. OP, not the a-hole. Girl next door type says, "Change your number and cut him off. Not sure why you stayed in contact after your husband died. You're definitely not the a-hole. I'm not sure why you would think you are. Don't change your number, block his number, his wife's, and get a restraining order so they'll have legal consequences if they continue with their crappy behavior. Truly sorry for your loss. Also, consider changing the locks on your door. He could have made another. Why risk it? Not the a-hole. I'm so sorry for your loss. You need to take care of yourself right now, and a big part of that is not allowing people who don't care for you around. Not the a-hole. I would cut them off completely because they are toxic. Posted by user ThrowRA and a whole bunch of numbers. Titled, Am I the a-hole for changing my husband's phone background? 10 years ago, I met my husband. He'd been so divorced from his wife for 2 years, and she'd taken their children across country. At the time, there were 4 female and 6 female when she took them. His phone background at the time was the girls on one of the beach with their arms around each other and smiling at the camera. It was a great, almost professional picture. It's been his background on every phone he's owned since. The girls visited every school holiday, which crushed my husband. His children decided to visit in March and only recently went home. Both spent some time with our children, who were 2 and 5 and both girls. As a surprise for my husband, I got my photographer brother to take a few professional photos of the children, all 4, and the pictures turned out great. I saved my husband's background picture to make sure he has it changed and the background to one of our children. If it wasn't clear, it also had his daughters in. I got all pictures framed as well. I would have thought that he'd be happy to have more of an updated picture of all the children together. He isn't. He believes I've selfishly crossed a boundary and that it was completely out of order. It was just a surprise. He's still upset and has changed his passcode too. We're always on each other's phones. I didn't break into his phone. If I wasn't clear, all 4 children were in the photo. Am I the a-hole? I'm gonna say, yeah, unfortunately OP is the a-hole. Although I like the idea and I like the concept of it, I feel like you should have communicated that with the husband. It's, we don't know everyone. We don't know how they're going to react. And unfortunately, some people aren't going to react the same way as this guy. Some people are. Some people are going to take it worse. Everyone's different. I think communication is key in a relationship, and he should definitely been told. He shouldn't have been surprised in this way. I think he's got such an attachment with these kids that it's, it is a huge break of trust to do that to someone. And I don't think that's an okay boundary to cross. So unfortunately, you are the a-hole OP. Soft, you're the a-hole. Getting the pictures done and having them framed isn't a bad thing at all. But changing the phone background isn't as great. There's a reason why that picture has been his phone background for so long. Phones are pretty personal. So messing with the settings and backgrounds on someone else's phone without permission is pretty invasive. This is what I say too. If the picture has been his background for several phones, it obviously has great sentimental value. OP should have simply stated that she has other photos if he would like to change his background. Then he would have the chance to emotionally decide. By doing it without his consent, OP crossed a line. You're the a-hole. Soft, you're the a-hole? OP should have asked. I think if all 4 kids were in the new picture, then no a-holes here. You have to remember, he sees your children every day, and he probably misses his older 2 a lot. It's not the contents of the photo that's the issue though. It's the boundary of a very personal thing that was changed without permission. That's true. I think it really depends on how open they are with their phones. Like, my boyfriend wouldn't care if I did that, but obviously some people would be rightfully upset. I think if she replaced the older 2 with just the younger 2, that would be a solid you're the a-hole. My photo background is my version of a photo in a locket. I'm open with my phone, but I don't want people rearranging my settings or my photo background. No a-holes here. You didn't erase the photo, you didn't do anything malicious, and you didn't invade his privacy. You did something that most people would find to be pretty sweet, honestly. Better question here is why, if he has 2 other kids, why didn't he want them included? This was my vibe as well. It was supposed to be a cute surprise. I don't get all these guys telling her that she's the a-hole. I think definitely no a-holes here. Changing a background back is like 2 seconds of work. and she made sure the picture was backed up. I really don't see the issue. I noticed most people saying that she's the a-hole for talking about invasion of privacy, which is pretty stupid. She changed the background. She didn't snoop through his phone. It is stupid. They're married, and she had a picture taken of all of them and put as the backgrounds. I don't get why these people think it's okay for him to not have all of his kids on his phone. I mean, he can have whoever he wants on his phone, especially if he doesn't see the others very often. My mum has a picture of my brother on her phone, and has for a while, because he recently left for the military. No a-holes for sure. Posted by user Snoo27375, titled, "Am I the a-hole for telling my coworker, 'I told you so,' after she tried to throw me under the bus?" I am an assistant to the top people at my company. Anything they need, I do. Whether it's setting up meetings, getting them Starbucks, to doing their expense reports. I started in December, and they like me because I focus 100% on them. Other people in my office noticed it and have asked me for help, and I learned the hard way that once you agree to help someone, then you assume a certain level of accountability. For example, if someone wanted me to mail out a check for them, and I do, but the check never arrives, then that's on me. It's never like, "You're not even supposed to be helping us, so don't worry about it." It turns into something that distracts me from what I was hired to do. Basically, I won't do anything but my job and keep my bosses happy. Last month, they brought on a new worker. She has to be set up a certain way because she was slowly going to take over some accounts in our system. We have a vendor that does this for us, but I've also been learning how to do it internally so our company doesn't have to pay the vendor. The setup profile that her manager was confusing and made no sense to the vendor, so it came all screwed up. 2 days before she were to start, this manager asks me to get her up into the system the way she needed her to be set up. I already had a conversation with this manager that I am by no means proficient enough to do these customized setups and would not even try because I don't want to screw things up. It's not like I'll get a pass for trying, and I don't have time to call up this vendor and try to tramp at them. Furthermore, she wouldn't even put in writing what she needed because she kept changing her mind. I told her I felt like she was just trying to find someone to blame if this went bad, and I will not be that person. She had a fit, and even said she would talk to my boss about it, and even said the last assistant wasn't this difficult. I told her to go right ahead. Afterwards, I wouldn't say I ignored her emails to the vendor that she CC'd me on in regards to the setup. I just read the ones from my bosses, the ones that matter. The setup was never done correctly and caused bigger problems. In the end, the new employee quit after a month of citing, "You guys don't have your crap together," and the manager got chewed out in a meeting. I was called in because she mentioned my name. I told everyone that I was asked to do something that I could not do. So I didn't, and I left it alone. When they asked me why, I said because I didn't want to be thrown under the bus like she was trying to do now. After the meeting, the manager came out and was upset. I said, "All I have to say to you is I told you so." I'm not one for the 9-to-5 office job life, but by the sounds of it, OP is not the a-hole, and she was very much asked to do something she has no skills in, and it absolutely would have landed her in trouble, like it did last time with the check, had this happened if she was in charge. So OP, very big smart, OP not the a-hole. Otis says, "Not the a-hole. Get the hell out of that toxic work culture though. It pays well enough to tolerate it. Plus, I have the excuse of hiding behind my bosses when someone asks me for something that I don't want to do. The reason why things have gotten bad is because a lot of people in the office are now working from home and slacking off, and it's showing. Rather than doing their jobs as if they were in the office, they just try to pass it on to me because I'm the nice guy who comes to work every day and does a very good job. You should know that this is a really good career path. The CEO of the company I'm with has had this same executive assistant for I don't even know how long, across multiple companies that he's run. You folks can end up with some real clout. Just look at Donna on Suits, lol. Yep, be good at a job like this, and you'll always have a job working for that person. OP is doing the right thing by realizing who she needs to please at this job. Agreed. The girl in the same position, but at my company, is now essentially the big boss's right-hand woman. She will have very good references for our industry if she eventually decides to leave. Not the a-hole. I live by a saying, not my circus, not my monkey. I like the, I don't know and don't care enough to ask. Not my pig, not my farm, not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Hey, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. I had a boss who would tell me she wanted things done in a way, and as soon as I did it, she changed her mind over and over again. This went on for years, driving me crazy. Finally, I transferred out, feeling sorry for whoever got my gig. It was very much easier working for someone who knew what they wanted. Posted by user Rice Consistent, titled, Am I the a-hole for changing my swimsuit after feeling uncomfortable at a pool party, and then embarrassing people when I was asked about it? This happened on Memorial Day. I'm a 22-year-old female. A family friend / neighbor has a large backyard that they love to throw parties in. My family is pretty close with them and usually goes whenever there's a party. If I'm busy with something, my parents don't care if I miss these events, but if I don't have any plans, they make me go with them and my younger siblings. Over the past 2 or so years, a couple of my dad's friends or adults in the neighborhood have been sorta creepy to me at these events. They sometimes make remarks about why I don't have a boyfriend and how they find it strange. Maybe it's not that weird, but it kinda creeps me out. Or if I go grab a beer, they try to draw out conversations about me being old enough to drink now, or asking me about my alcohol preferences. On the day of this party, I was already having a crappy day since I fought with my mom earlier, and I was sort of on edge at the party. I was hanging out in the pool, and I went to get out because I had to pee. I felt eyes on me, like some of the men at the party were treating me like I was that girl in the pool scene in Fast Times. I had glasses on, and ended up making eye contact with the house owner, who seemed to space out with his eyes resting on me as I walked inside the house. After using the restroom and feeling very uncomfortable, I walked back home and changed out of the bikini I was wearing and put on the ugly one piece I had to wear in high school swim classes. I arrived back at the pool and swam, when my mum called me over to her and a group of neighbors and adults at the party. She asked me why I left and put on another swimsuit. I said something like, I was feeling uncomfortable with all these men who were dad's age staring at me. An awkward silence filled the air, and my mum looked at me signaling, Are you fudging kidding me? I asked her why she was looking at me that way, and she apologized to the adults and I walked away. After sitting in the hot tub for a bit, my dad came up to me and sort of whispered that he heard what I said, and it made a lot of people uncomfortable and maybe I should apologize. I barked at my dad loudly, and at this point, people were looking at me. I yelled for him to tell Mr. Last Name to stop being a fudging pervert then. At this point, the man who I name-dropked's wife started yelling at me, telling me I'm a little punk and I need more respect for my elders, and how disgusting it was of me to accuse people of that. I just told her, don't worry, your husband wasn't the only one who was staring, and I'm very uncomfortable that the neighbors who knew me since I was a toddler now ogle over me in my swimsuit. One adult man there spoke up and said he was sorry, that he wasn't looking at me, but if I thought he was, he's very sorry for the misunderstanding. I told my parents I was going home. My parents returned an hour or so later and promptly bitched me out for embarrassing them and making the entire party awkward. Did I go too far? Alright, so I'm going to say the normal response here is not the a-hole, but I think she went a tad bit over the top in that reaction. That's just my opinion, you're welcome to disagree with that. I'm going to say that everyone sucks here as a result, but only her a little bit, I don't blame her for her actions there. I can completely understand being creeped out by being in a bathing suit and being checked out constantly by people you grew up with. That seems, makes me want to crawl out of my skin. I think OP just went a little bit too far, starting a huge argument at the party. I think there's a time and place for it. I'm sure, it's understandable that you did it. I think it was a tad bit out of line though. That's not to say that don't do it. Sometimes it's good to be called out on these things. Sometimes it's bad. I wasn't there, I'm just getting your account. But I still think that everyone sucks here. Not the a-hole. The ones who need to apologize were the ones ogling you. This, like seriously, can't some parents be understanding if their daughter feels uncomfortable? Oh, no, see, you don't understand. While children can easily be taught not to stare, adult males cannot. It is theorized that as they age, they grow an entitlement gene that society always telling them that they're great and it's perfectly okay to be pervy. Sarcasm. This is exactly why girls have dress codes at school. Because how dare we teach the boys how not to stare? It might teach them how to not become creepy old men later in life. Sometimes the women are worse. I love wearing short shorts in the summer, and the wives always glare me down like how dare I entice their men to stare at me. It's disgusting. I'm pretty sure this is going to get at me yelled at on here, but I have a different perspective. I've been both the young pretty girl in the bikini that got oogled a lot, and am now a middle-aged wife, so I feel like I have a wide variety of understanding on the experience. If those men were leering and harassing you, you absolutely have the right to be ticked off and can call it out. Men can be gross, and it's not fair for you to have to put up with that, and in that case, your parents should back you up. But before you mess with someone's life by calling them out by name in front of everybody, you better be absolutely sure that that's what they're doing. It sounds like, by your own admission, there was room for question about whether they were actually leering at you or not. By calling out one person in particular by name in a public place, you made a very serious accusation, and trust me, you absolutely humiliated and hurt his wife. Now, before everyone jumps down my throat for saying I'm enabling perverts, I'm doing nothing of the sort. I'm your prototypical liberal feminist and have fought for years for women to have the right to exist without being harassed. I'm just saying that I think sometimes we're too quick to jump on the bandwagon of terrible accusations that can ruin people's lives, and because of that, many legitimate claims are undermined and go ignored. Based purely on OP's information above, finding these middle-aged men sorta creepy may not justify the damage that OP caused to this man and his wife. If there's more to the story, I will happily admit I'm wrong in this case. I think we need more information before lauding OP, as everybody on here seems to be doing. I wrote this on Twitter, but I'll say it again. I'm having trouble discerning in my mind when I was younger in a swimsuit. I sure thought there were eyes on me, but I don't know if there were or it was my self-consciousness. To expand on that, sprinkle in a hint of my own narcissism. If OP was 100% sure they were oogling, then she was in the right. But the conversations themselves seem harmless. Without knowing the facts, this is a hard one to vote for. OP did compare herself to Phoebe Cates. Yeah, that Fast Times reference alone makes me feel like just maybe this post was completely one-sided. Maybe. That one got me too. Sometimes guys are really creepy and stare and are inappropriate, and sometimes women think more highly of themselves than others do. Alright guys, that's all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed this one today. Tell me what you thought of it down in the comments below. If you're not subscribed to the channel, I would love you to subscribe because I love your face and I love seeing you here every single day that you are here in this video. I don't know what else to say today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the content. I do have a second channel that's called Markee 2. Link should be up on the screen somewhere here if you don't have adblock installed. If you don't know where to find the channel, you can go to my main page. Just click on the Markee face and it should be on the right somewhere there, or on channels if you're on phone. Hope you guys have a good one. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.